Good morning and welcome to day 137 in our 365 days of a tour of the Bible and its different genres of literature. At the moment we're looking at the statutes and ordinances of old Israel. And at the moment we're looking at those particular laws relating to human behavior towards other humans. And on this particular day we're looking at how to deal with the defeated in battle. This is a reading from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 20, verses 10 to 15, and I'll turn you around so you can see the text. When you go with the intention of attacking a city, you must give the people in it the option of surrender. If they should throw their gates open and give in, then they all become your slaves and may be forced to work for you. But if instead they choose to fight, you should besiege the city. Then, at the point when Yahweh your God allows you to capture it, kill all the men you find in it, the women and children, the livestock, and everything else you can have. Everything that used to belong to your enemies is yours to use. Yahweh has given it to you. That is how you are to deal with cities at some distance from the land you are settling. Conflict with cities outside the Promised Land was not unknown. And if the Israelites found themselves in a position to besiege and occupy such a city, total destruction was not an option that these old laws would allow. They were to offer the city the option of carrying on the conflict or submitting their surrender. Surrender would mean slavery and plunder for the city under attack, but lives would be spared. It was even envisaged that women captives, under certain conditions, might become the wives of their captors. This is envisioned in Deuteronomy chapter 21, verses 10 to 14. Much more severe conditions were placed on the cities in the Promised Land itself. There was always a danger that the Israelite invaders might like what they saw of the Canaanites' way of life, and particularly of their religion. So when these cities were taken, everyone was to be annihilated so that they can't make you sin against Yahweh by teaching you their disgusting worship practices, as it says in Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 18. There is no subtlety in these rules of warfare. They come from a time when seizing territory and preserving your nation's culture were life and death issues. Of course, as we can see from the rest of the Old Testament, not all the pagans were exterminated, and there were still pagan hilltop shrines that survived to rival God's temple, at least up until the time of the Babylonian exile. So maybe preserving these ancient commands beyond that point was a way for the Jews to remind themselves that they had not perfectly obeyed God. And that made their guilt greater and the determination to be more perfectly Jewish even stronger. Nowadays we regard genocide not as a command from God, but the most serious of war crimes. The Turkish treatment of Armenia, the World War II Holocaust by Nazi Germany, and events in Bosnia in the 20th century have all received condemnation. A pity that the 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were not also condemned. So, are we to say that the Deuteronomic laws of slaughter and enslavement were bad laws? Our perspectives on these are vastly different from theirs, of course. For them it might not have seemed they were bad. But for us, I think, we must say that they are unacceptable and evil. Tomorrow, we find a number of laws that seem much more sensible to us, and one, actually, that looks pretty ridiculous. So I'll see you tomorrow.